What's going on, Colts Nation? Appreciate you joining me for another video where in this one we're going to talk a little bit about roster projections, right? Something that we kind of just been waiting for the preseason games, training camp to all be done. And now we're at a point where roster cuts for some teams have definitely already started. And I assume here pretty soon the Colts will start making their moves. So this is just my predictions. There are a lot of different people that write for the Colts and that work on reporting on the Colts that have put out their predictions. I honestly haven't looked at them. I assume they look very similar, but there might be some differences, especially along the defense and possible roster construction and what that's going to be. But I kind of went off a lot of kind of what we've done the entire time Shane's been here. So starting at the top, we got to get through 53 players. So let's go ahead. Of course, at the quarterback position, Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, Riley Leonard. Now here, I don't think that the Colts are gonna take 4 quarterbacks in. I think they're gonna take their chance on Jason being on the practice squad just like he was last year. But I think through the preseason and through training camp, I don't think there's really any doubt that Riley Leonard deserves the roster spot. So those are 3 quarterbacks. And then from the running back position, Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Goodson, DJ Giddens, and Ulysses Bentley IV, the odd man out here being Khalil Herbert, who through the preseason only played in the first game where he had 7 carries for 26 or 29 yards, whatever it was. So overall, I think availability is a thing that is important, especially at that running back position. And to be completely honest, I think that DJ Giddens is going to take some of that receiver role. I think Tyler Goodson can too. But ultimately, I think DJ Giddens, is going to be able to have a decent amount of snaps. I think he's too good to not be on the field. And at the end of the day, we gave Khalil Herbert a 1-year, like $1.3 million deal, somewhere in that range, 1.13, something like that. And it was like $482,000 guaranteed. So it's not anything crazy, not anything, to write home about, somebody you can get rid of. I think because of availability and because you like the guy that you drafted and the guy that you've developed in Tyler Goodson, I think that makes Herbert expendable. Unfortunately, somebody I've always liked in the league, I just don't think he's going to be with us because Ulysses Bentley IV has kind of shown out through training camp, through preseason. He's done his thing. So I kind of expect him to be able to get one of the roster spots. Now, wide receiver kind of speaks for itself. Obviously, you have Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, A.D. Mitchell, Ashton Dulin, and Anthony Gould, right? Those are the 6 guys that we expect. Laquan Treadwell hopefully ends up back on our practice squad. Is that going to happen? Who knows? He balled out last preseason. He balled out this preseason. So hopefully he makes it back to us, and so that we, have him for just in case of emergency kind of situation. But we shall see what happens there. Now, as we continue to go here, we have Tyler Warren, Will Mallory, Mo Alley Cox, Drew Ogletree, which leaves Jelani Woods out. We already had this conversation, so not going to go too far into it. You want to see that video? It was a couple weeks ago. We expected Jelani Woods to be the odd man out. You have a couple receiving guys. You have a couple blocking guys. It just is what it is. Unfortunately, Jelani Woods, was injured his first couple years, unable to really, make himself a staple on this team. And unfortunately, he's going to get cut. I doubt he clears waivers enough to end up on the Colts. I assume somebody else is going to pick him up. I don't know how that whole process works, to be completely honest with you, but I'd kind of be surprised if we ended up with Jelani Woods on our practice squad. Okay, but then as we continue to go, offensive line, Braden Smith, Mackin Savez, Tanner Bortolini, Quentin Nelson, Bernard Raymond, Jalen Travis, Dalton Tucker, Danny Pinter, Wesley French. And when you look at the backups, the starters are what the starters are. We typically roll with 9 offensive linemen on the roster. And my thought process here, like I have Jalen Travis and then 3 interior guys. So my thought process was that at the end of the day, if we end up with injuries on the interior, we're good. We end up with tackle injuries, like if Braden gets hurt again, right, then we can slide, obviously, Jalen Travis into right tackle. Well, Jalen Travis played a little bit left tackle throughout this preseason as well. So if something happens to Bernie, we can put Jalen Travis over there. And if we end up in a situation where both the tackles get hurt, then you can have Jalen Travis at left tackle. You can move Magan Savez to right tackle instead of right guard. And then you can thrust in what I assume would probably be Dalton Tucker at that right guard position. So that's kind of why I went the way I went. I think we have a couple of guys that have a little bit of versatility. A guy that can play both tackle positions. We have a guy that can play inside and out. So it gives us a little bit of flexibility. We can still carry the 9 and be good if there are injuries. Okay, now moving on to the defense. Okay, that takes care of 26 roster spots. Defensively, Kwity Paye, DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, Liatu Latu, Tyquan Lewis, Neville Gallimore, Samson Ebicom, and JTT. Also, Tim Smith, Isaiah Land. I actually had more defensive linemen. It's going to be interesting. There's going to be tough decisions that are made. Tommy Ade is a guy that I had to take off of here. How likely is it that he doesn't make it? That would be an interesting decision, right? Some of these guys are going to have the special teams utility. Tommy Ade might have more special teams utility, so we might see a situation where Tim Smith ends up being one of the odd men out and we try to get him back on the practice squad, which would be fine if we were able to do that. I think he's made some plays in the preseason, obviously in the game against the Packers, came from behind, punched the ball out. But in terms of run defense, it obviously hasn't been good enough for the backup units. So at the end of the day, I chose Tim Smith, but Tommy Ade, kind of a weapon, I think, on special teams. So we'll see what decision ends up being made there. But nonetheless, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 10 defensive linemen. Very easily could not go that way. Very easily could be 9 and we could add a linebacker. But in terms of linebackers, like I already have 5 of them, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I have 5. So we'll see about that. I have Cameron McGrone, who is listed as a starter. As I went to the Colts website and looked at the depth chart, Cameron McGrone was listed as a starter. I thought that was an interesting decision. Jalen Carlisle obviously hasn't been able to be on the field because of injury. Joe Bacci, whatever, he's been pretty good. I thought he'd honestly have that spot if Carlisle isn't there. And then Austin Ajak, he's somebody who has special teams utility. Those are the 5 guys I went with at linebacker. Then when you look further, Charvarius Ward, Xavier Howard, Kenny Moore, Juju Branch, Jalen Jones. In the 6th corner I picked was Jonathan Edwards, somebody who through practice and through games has impressed me. It hasn't been perfect, right? He's the 6th corner. It's not going to be perfect, but he is somebody that at different points I've been impressed with. I think he's played pretty well. I think he does a pretty good job in coverage. Like there's some people like number 36. I don't even know who number 36 is. Didn't worry about really going too deep into it because of the way he plays. I know he's not going to make the team. He likes to put his arms up and not turn around. Like you can't play corner like that. Jonathan Edwards is somebody that has impressed me, somebody that has been good in coverage in the preseason. And for that matter, there have been videos that the Colts put out where the offense is making plays, but Jonathan Edwards still really good coverage. It's just the offense is making good plays. So Jonathan Edwards is a 6th corner for me with the corner injuries that we have. That's the guy that I went with there. Now at the safety position, Cam Bynum, Nick Cross, Daniel Scott, Rodney Thomas. Rodney Thomas might be – actually, I'm not even going to say might be. Of the 53 players on the active roster that we're talking about here, Rodney Thomas is the worst of them all. So if there is a replacement, a potential replacement out there, I'd say go get him, right? Maybe we take a shot on Shiloh Sanders. I know that the Buccaneers, shortly before I started recording this, the Buccaneers waived him. Right now, obviously, Shiloh Sanders was a 7th rounder. He got ejected against the Bills for punching somebody. That's a massive red flag. You can't be hurting your team like that when you're fighting for a roster spot. But Rodney Thomas is terrible. So I think it would only be fitting to go ahead and replace Rodney Thomas at some point. We'll see if that happens. Daniel Scott, with the injury to Hunter Wohler, kind of opens up a spot for Daniel Scott. And Daniel Scott might end up playing in that Hunter Wohler type of role. What we expected Hunter to be doing, that could be Daniel Scott, somebody who's dealt with injury over the first 2 years, but had 2 interceptions. One was taken away in the Packers game due to a penalty, but gets a pick six, his first official pick six that doesn't get taken off, and it goes, his first interception doesn't get taken off, and it goes for 6. So that was really cool to see in the Bengals game, and I think that's going to earn him a spot on the roster at the end of the day. Then, of course, you have Rigoberto Sanchez, Spencer Schrader, and I just realized that I'm overzealous here. I forgot about Luke Rhodes, which means that we have to take a defensive lineman out. And if we're going to take a defensive lineman out, then at the end of the day, man, this is actually a tough decision, because do you take out Isaiah Land? I just don't think you'd want, like, honestly, I would take out Tyquan Lewis. I understand that's not going to happen because for some reason Chris Ballard is so in love with Tyquan Lewis. Okay, the next one that kind of makes sense to me is Samson Ebicom. Save $8 million. But at this point, what are you doing if you're trying to save $8 million? If you cut Samson Ebicom, is there a world where we trade for Trey Hendrickson? Right? That would be interesting. There's definitely conversations to be had there. I think I'm going to go ahead and choose Tim Smith. 7th round guy, interior defensive lineman. That could be a bad decision. I'm keeping Tyquan Lewis, Samson Ebicom, JTT, and Isaiah Land, so I probably made the wrong decision. Again, I think it probably should be Tyquan Lewis in terms of edge guy. Like, I'd rather keep Isaiah Land, JTT, and Samson Ebicom if that's the way we're going to go, and keep Tim Smith or Tommy Ade, whatever the decision ends up being for the interior. Because obviously when Defoe and Grove go out, you're going to need more beef on the interior there. So we'll see what happens. This obviously, the defensive line is the part that I think I'm wrong about. Everything else I feel pretty good about, pretty solid about. The defensive line, specifically the backup defensive line, is really the part that I'm going to be interested in to see exactly what they decide to do. Because in terms of edge rushers, not really sure who to cut there. I don't want to get rid of Isaiah Land. I've seen enough to like him. I'm not a Tyquan Lewis fan. I'm sorry. I'm just not. Colts fans and Chris Ballard love this guy. I think he should probably be gone. But that's just me. But nonetheless, that's my prediction for the roster that we're going to see. My best guess for what we should expect between offense, defense, and special teams. So you guys let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Do you agree with everything? Is there anything you disagree with? You let me know down in the comment section, of course. Make sure you hit the like button if you enjoy the content. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you continue to get notified anytime we drop any content on this channel. Of course, I appreciate you stopping by for another video. And as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.